high-stakes meeting on Friday, high-stakes meeting on Monday. President Trump, we know, met with Vladimir Putin in an effort to end the war in Ukraine late last week.
Ahead of that meeting, the president threatened severe consequences if Russia did not end the fighting. But then he backtracked on that ceasefire demand, writing on social that a peace agreement is the best way to end the war, not a pause on fighting. The summit didn't produce an agreement, but Trump calls the meeting productive.
Many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there.
So now the president is set to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky along with several other top European leaders. For more, let's bring in Washington correspondent Drew Petrimo. We know you got your eyes on everything going around the Beltway. A lot of people in town this Monday.
Yeah, big group. I think it's key to focus on what the president said there. There's one issue kind of outstanding that's kind of a big one. And, that seems to be this idea of swapping land that Ukraine would have to give to Russia in order to achieve that peace. That's what the reports coming out of this meeting are from the demands from the Russian side. It includes a large portion of eastern Ukraine and formal recognition of Crimea. Just to put that in perspective for our U.S. viewers out there, that would be like the U.S. proportionally giving up California and Texas. It's a huge portion of Ukraine, and it's not even clear how exactly the mechanics of giving that land would go up. It would require a change in the Ukrainian constitution to give up land. It would also ostensibly require a vote of the people in order for formal recognition of any landmass changes. So whether or not this would be some kind of agreement to informally allow Russia to occupy this land without granting formal recognition, there's just a lot of going on there when it comes to that landmass that's going to be a problem for Ukraine and for other European leaders who are also very concerned about that issue.
Yeah, true. I mean, at least up until now, that's pretty much been a red line. Zelensky was very clear, not giving up land. The EU completely backed him on that.
Yeah, I mean, and if you listen to administration officials, they say that, we might not like this reality, but there's going to have to be some give and pull from both sides. I think Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, made the point this weekend that neither side is close to a surrender. And if there's no surrender, there's going to be some kind of negotiation. But, what exactly that means, I think that's going to be the devil of the details that's going to be talked about, and that's going to be a really heavy lift to get Ukraine and European leaders to agree to.
So let's talk about what's going down today. You've got leaders of England, France, Italy, Germany, and the EU all in town, along with Volodymyr Zelensky. How are all these talks going to take place, and what is going to be a very compressed schedule?
Yeah, I think the first thing to look for is there's going to be a bilateral meeting between the U.S. and Ukraine. The president's going to be there. President Trump's going to be there. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is going to be there. Apparently also Vice President J.D. Vance is going to be there. So, of course, that's going to create flashbacks to the last time Zelensky was in the Oval Office. There was a tense meeting between him and U.S. officials. After that, there's going to be a larger meeting with the European delegation. There's going to be a family photo. Everybody going to be participating. So it's going to kind of be Trump and Zelensky and Vance in a meeting initially, and then bring in the European leaders later on.
So Zelensky has been criticizing these security guarantees, saying, "I'm grateful to POTUS for the invitation. We all share a strong desire to end this war quickly and reliably, and peace must be lasting, not like it was years ago when Ukraine was forced to give up Crimea and part of the East, or when Ukraine was given so-called security guarantees in 1994. And that's what they're talking about again, security guarantees. And that's going to be a really big issue today.
It's going to be another huge part of it. What exactly is the United States willing to offer Ukraine to guarantee security, if they were to possibly agree to give up portions of their land? There have been talks from Europeans that they would put some boots on the ground. Hard to imagine that President Trump would agree to put American troops on the ground to achieve peace there. But what would the U.S. be willing to give? There's been talk of some kind of Article 5-like agreement. Article 5 refers back to NATO charter that says an attack on one country is an attack on all member countries. Of course, Ukraine is not a member of NATO, but what guarantee that would say something in the words of the agreement to say that if Ukraine were attacked, that would be considered an attack on the United States? Of course, that brings into all kinds of questions of what exactly is the U.S. saying would be response? Are we committing to a full-scale war against Russia to defend Ukraine? I think that's going to be a heavy lift for for the United States. I mean, agreed. That's a huge agreement.
Right. Right. We're going to continue this conversation in our next hour. Still so much more to get to as we look ahead to this, high stakes meeting coming up this afternoon. Drew, thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew.